This is Dr. Joe Luciani, and for the next hour, I'd like you to sit back and join me as I discuss the first chapter of Thin from Within, the powerful self-coaching program for permanent weight loss. This chapter includes a section on the key to psychological resilience, weight loss nuts and bolts, and the big three challenges to weight mastery that I call your enemies. As I'm fond of saying, weight loss and weight mastery is and will always be a matter of mind over mouth.
Part 1. The Essentials of Weight Mastery. Chapter 1. What you need to know about weight mastery. There's a reason why long-term weight loss is so elusive, and I'm willing to bet you already know the answer. Successful lifelong weight mastery has more to do with your mind than it does with your mouth. Losing weight and keeping it off has less to do with what you eat and just about everything to do with why you eat it. In other words, unless you can deal with stressful emotions, physical cravings, or food addictions, ultimately, no diet in the world will bring you the lasting change you seek. But as I said, I bet you already knew this. From the start, let's get one thing straight. Thin from Within isn't a diet book. I leave that to Weight Watchers, South Beach, Atkins, Zone, Jenny Craig, Dr. Joel Fuhrman's Nutritarian Lifestyle, or one of the more than 70,000 diet books offered at Amazon.com. All of which present methods to lose weight. You don't need more information on calories, points, portions, or carbohydrates. If you're really serious about losing weight and keeping it off, what you do need is a progressive, psychological solution that can answer such common frustrations as why can't I handle stress without resorting to food? Why do I feel too tired to exercise? Why can't I tell when enough is enough? Why can't I just say no to self-destructive impulses? Why can't I keep the weight off? So before you embrace that next miracle, eat all you want and still lose weight diet, recognize the simple truth that the last thing you need is another diet. What you do need is another perspective, a perspective that will never again allow you to be victimized by impulsive cravings, self-sabotage, or mindless emotional grazing. The key to psychological resilience: self-coaching. Losing weight is, of course, why you diet. But as you know, that's only half the battle. The other half is keeping it off. And for many, it's the keeping it off that seems so impossible. Although the challenges you face in the losing phase, i.e., dealing with long-standing destructive eating habits and crippling compulsions, handling the discomfort of a reduced calorie diet while sustaining motivation, self-discipline, and so forth, can persist into the keeping it off phase, this time you're going to have an advantage to keep you on track. By blending powerful cognitive psychological insights with motivational coaching, the self-coaching method that I systematically describe over the course of this book goes beyond simple slogans and one-liners and gets to the emotional core of mindless, compulsive, or even addictive eating. Once you are liberated from faulty perceptions, insecurities, frustrations, and even anxiety or depression, you will be empowered to handle life's challenges, not sidestep them through food. As anyone who has ever yo-yoed with weight loss, weight gain can tell you, given time, your old habits can, and will, attempt to undermine your resolve, which is why you need to establish a totally new relationship with food, a relationship in which you, rather than your desires, compulsions, or addictions, call the shots, one in which you stabilize your mind, your physiology, and your behavior to embrace a new philosophy of learning how to eat to live rather than living just to eat. Take a moment to think about the times in your life when you felt invincible, able to walk away from temptations, the times you felt totally confident and in control. Maybe it was a time you stepped onto a scale and saw a significant drop in your weight. Or perhaps when you declined a particularly tempting piece of birthday cake. Or even the moment you decided, no more procrastination, I'm going to lose weight. These were empowered moments of psychological resilience. Times when you felt motivated and focused on your intentions. Unfortunately, as you will most likely agree, these times were often fleeting, as old habits inevitably reintroduce themselves. What if you could harness that same resilience and motivation and allow this strong, confident, self-disciplined mindset to become your new steady state? You can. And this is where self-coaching has you covered. Self-coaching reflection. The key to successful lifelong weight mastery is achieving a state of psychological resilience. Self-coaching's most powerful tool, self-talk. You may have heard the term self-talk already. Some psychologists use it to describe the mental dialogue that people have as a way to pump themselves up, or conversely, in an unhealthy way, to denigrate themselves. However, I use it in a totally different manner. When you hear me use the term self-talk, I'm referring to a specific 3-step technique that I first introduced more than 10 years ago in my book Self-Coaching, The Powerful Program to Beat Anxiety and Depression. I originally designed self-talk as a method of dismantling the stubborn habits that sustain anxiety and depression. And I introduced this concept to patients and readers from all over the world. However, in the intervening years, I have discovered that self-talk has much broader applications. In order to get beyond your particular stubborn habits of self-indulgence, emotional friction, or even anxiety or depression, it's imperative that you have the self-talk advantage. We discussed self-talk in detail in Part 3, but for now, here's a brief overview. The first self-talk step is designed to teach you to separate facts from emotional fictions. When it comes to lifelong weight mastery, the truth, facts, will indeed set you free. For example, fiction. It's too hard. I can't do it. Fact. It may feel hard, but the fact remains that you could do it if you were more resilient. Fiction. I have to have something sweet right now. Fact. You feel like you have to have something sweet, but feelings are not facts. The ability to separate facts from emotional fictions paves the way for the second self-talk step, in which you learn how to say no to ruminative thoughts and stop those impulses and cravings. As your resolve and self-discipline grow, you are ready for the third step, which teaches you how to liberate yourself from emotional friction, compulsivity, and struggle. In short, you learn to let go and self-trust. Using self-talk, you not only release yourself from reflexive, mindless eating, but, more importantly for lifelong weight mastery, you remove the source of your emotional friction, thereby eliminating the corrosive effects of stress. Do this, and you'll be in the driver's seat, no longer choosing to seek the anesthetizing effects of unhealthy eating to get you through the day. You'll reach a point where you are maintaining your weight without much effort and, more importantly, without any discomfort. How is this possible? When you are empowered by insight, self-awareness, and resilience, your unhealthy habits recede as your healthy habits become more fixed. And once your habits are in line with your intentions, you'll be on autopilot. No thinking required. You'll simply be at a fortified place where you no longer struggle with that old, incessant debate, should I, shouldn't I? Once you no longer need to use food to assuage your struggles, give meaning to your mundane day, or relieve boredom, you begin to find a new appreciation for healthy eating. I realize what I'm suggesting may seem rather far-reaching, especially if you picked up this audiobook looking simply for practical tips on losing weight. If this is the case, I do apologize. However, I only ask at this point that you consider that your traditional struggle with food and weight stability has had more to do with your psychology than you realized. I hope I could convince you that only by going the distance and obtaining psychological resilience will you be in a truly fortified position to finally live your intentions for life. Breaking old, destructive habits. As anyone who has ever turned away from a Venetian dessert cart knows, discomfort is learning to live with the word no. Maybe you've been convinced by some slick advertising campaign, insisting that mature, moderate, healthy eating can be accomplished effortlessly without ever having to say no to the foods you love. Not true. Although this ruse sells diet programs, eventually, as the saying goes, you can't have your cake and eat it too, at least not on any regular basis. This is especially true with addictive trigger foods that reawaken and sustain old destructive habits. If you're still insisting that such and such diet guarantees that you can eat all the cake you want and lose weight, then keep this audiobook on your shelf for future reference. You'll need it after you've exhausted your search for the holy grail of weight mastery by following nonsensical advice. For the sake of argument, I'm going to assume that you've more or less given up looking for that magical diet, and that once again, you find yourself struggling with that nagging conviction that you're a weak person who just can't handle the ongoing discomfort necessary to sustain sensible, healthy eating. In other words, I'm going to assume that in your dispirited state, the very last thing you want to listen to is that lifelong weight mastery requires that you must first figure out how to handle discomfort. But don't panic. Let me quickly and emphatically point out that when it comes to ongoing weight mastery, the discomfort I'm referring to is only temporary. Repeat, temporary. And you'll find that whatever initial discomfort you do encounter, self-talk sees you through this phase. Self-coaching reflection. Failure is the path of least persistence. Self-talk is a simple, three-step cognitive technique that allows you to navigate through the twisted minefield of distorted thinking associated with the challenges of taking your life back from old destructive habits. Self-coaching relies on the application of self-talk, and its essential goals are twofold: habit reformation and psychological resilience. Habit reformation is the process of extinguishing old destructive eating and thinking patterns and replacing them with habits that are consistent with your intentions and aspirations, and with a totally new perspective on eating. Psychological resilience is the confidence that comes from developing your self-discipline muscle. With a self-talk advantage and fortified self-discipline muscle, you'll be pleased to find that eventual, lifelong weight mastery is not at all stressful or uncomfortable. That's right, sustaining optimum weight does not have to be a struggle. You will not have to live your life sulking, unhappy, or feeling deprived. Not once you take your life back from the faulty habits that have held you hostage for so long. Are you ready? Great. Now let's discuss the nuts and bolts of weight loss and weight maintenance. Weight loss, nuts and bolts. See if this sounds familiar. You've had enough. You've thought about losing weight for a long time. After exploring the many diets available, you've made your selection. You're pumped up. You're ready. Day one of your new diet arrives. You're motivated, determined, and somewhat relieved. Relieved to get off the fence of ambivalence and commit yourself to losing weight. After weeks and months of procrastination, you're there. Finally. As the days go by, you're euphoric as the weight seemingly melts away. Amazed by the results and your determination, you feel exhilarated and energized. And then after such an encouraging start, your progress begins to slow down. You find yourself floundering. Is this one of those dreaded plateaus where, despite careful adherence to your diet and regular exercise, the needle on the bathroom scale seems to be painted at the same spot? How can this be? Those jubilant first few weeks, when you were dropping weight at an astonishing rate, mesmerized you into thinking that you had finally found dieting nirvana. You were so encouraged, so confident. But now, as panic and old cravings quietly begin to stir, you realize you're stuck. You're doing everything you're supposed to. You're not cheating. What's wrong? The simple answer is that nothing's wrong. Not if you understand that not all weight loss is equal. There's water weight loss and there's fat weight loss. The truth is that the fat you thought you were melting away was water that you were draining away. Although you may encounter what feels like a plateau after only a couple of weeks of dieting, this is related to the initial water that your body lost due to restricting your caloric and sodium intake. The human body can safely lose about 1 pound or 2 of fat a week, compared to upward of 10 pounds or more of water weight. A true plateau is reached much later, when fat loss has become more significant and your leaner body is now establishing a new equilibrium by lowering your metabolism and burning fewer calories, which means that the same caloric restriction and exercise that got you to this point have begun to stall out. You may find the factual truth about weight loss discouraging, especially if you've been sold a bill of goods by slick weight loss programs or books making fantastic claims, while ignoring the reality that extreme, rapid weight loss can cause gallstones, dehydration, irregular menstruation, muscle and hair loss, loose skin, and even disastrous cardiac arrhythmias. Understanding the truth about weight loss and lifelong weight mastery is crucial to developing a mindset that equips you to handle the ongoing demands of reinventing your relationship to food, as well as to yourself. Of course, you're going to encounter frustrations and setbacks, but to assume you can sidestep such realities is a ticket for disaster. The anatomy of motivation. In order to actualize your intentions and goals, you're going to have to instill a type of motivation that isn't dependent on external circumstances or events, but on the motivation that comes as a natural byproduct of psychological resilience. Understand that by using food to compensate for any psychological emotional shortcoming or circumstantial stressor, you've developed a dependency relationship with food. You need the comfort of food. When you don't need to turn to food for solace, distraction, or anesthesia, you are finally in a position to break the bonds of your enslavement to destructive eating. Whether it's sticking with a diet, handling the standstill of a plateau, or resisting the inevitable urges, impulses, and compulsions, the bottom line is you need to stay motivated. With the exception of the first few weeks of a diet, when you're feeling ecstatic over the rapid water loss, the key to all successful weight loss programs is staying motivated. Everything good happens when you're able to stay motivated. Simply put, motivation is your psychic fuel. It fuels the motor that ensures self-discipline and optimism, essential ingredients when striving toward any goal. Defining extrinsic and intrinsic goals. There are 2 basic forms of motivation: extrinsic and intrinsic. Extrinsic motivation comes from outside, being hopped up about a new diet plan, actually losing weight, fitting into those once tight jeans, and so on. Intrinsic motivation comes from within you. It's the fortified, uncontaminated desire to be healthy and fit, and to feel great. Extrinsic motivation depends on external circumstances to keep you going. Intrinsic motivation relies on an inner conviction to live your intentions. There's no contest as to which form of motivation sees you through the initial stages of losing weight and prepares you for lifelong permanent weight stability. Not that there's anything wrong with extrinsic motivation. In fact, when it comes to developing the necessary mental muscle to overcome old, destructive eating habits, if you have extrinsic motivation working alongside intrinsic motivation, you're wielding quite a 1-2 punch. Unfortunately, whether it's reaching a plateau or gaining a pound or two back, if you're relying solely on extrinsic motivation, you're putting your success at risk. We motivate ourselves to work for extrinsic goals in many ways. Reaching a target weight, fitting into a smaller size, getting beach ready, wowing the family at a wedding, and so forth. And there's nothing wrong with this. However, to be in the driver's seat, you're going to have to pay more attention to your intrinsic goals as well, such as attaining personal empowerment, psychological mastery, self-pride, and so forth. To do this, you're going to have to learn to embrace an attitude consisting of optimism, self-trust, and self-confidence, the building blocks of psychological resilience. With a resilient mindset, you learn to stand up to challenging circumstances, urges, compulsions, and food addictions. Whether you're facing a temporary setback, a slip, or a plateau, with self-coaching resilience and intrinsic motivation, you'll be giving yourself everything you need to reach and sustain your goals. Self-coaching reflection. Success with lifelong weight mastery can be summed up as your ability to actualize and then stick with your intentions to maintain a healthy goal weight over time. The anatomy of self-discipline. As mentioned earlier in this chapter, there are 2 phases to successful weight mastery: the losing phase and the keeping it off phase. Regardless of how successful you are in the losing phase, if you aren't able to sustain your loss over time, it's all for naught. Although some might argue that making it through a wedding or getting that beach body for the summer is sufficient success. For those interested in never having to diet again, my lips to God's ears, it all comes down to learning to stick with a lifelong eating plan of nutritional moderation and healthy choices. Choices that are less focused on carbohydrates or calories and more on the ability, aka self-discipline, to manage the transient discomfort inherent with change. This means you need to tolerate the discomfort in the losing phase and also in the keeping it off phase until you manage to change your physiological, psychological, and behavioral eating patterns. Sound like a tall order? Considering that you've probably knocked at this door numerous times in your weight loss attempts, I'm sure you have grave and understandable reservations about your ability to keep it off. Don't let past experience failure discourage you. You have never before attempted this with a fortified self-discipline muscle. Consider this your secret weapon. There's no question that in order to become psychologically resilient, you must become self-disciplined. But what exactly is self-discipline? We seem to refer to it as if it were a commodity, a thing, something that you possess. I just don't have enough self-discipline. This, unfortunately, is a tragic miscalculation, because if your conclusion is that you inherently lack self-discipline, then eventually you're going to reach a point where you throw up your hands and say, "Why bother? I'm just not strong enough." And let's not forget the impact of those destructive, suppressed habits that are beginning to regain strength as you persist into the weeks and months of dieting. Like a rubber band being stretched, at some point, the desire to be thin is challenged by a growing desire to return to the solace, comfort, and denial of eating those fattening foods. When this happens, you are, unfortunately, prone to go from enthusiasm to self-sabotage. The rubber band snaps back. Rather than thinking of self-discipline as a kind of abstract genetic endowment, something that one either possesses or doesn't, think of it as a muscle. You know about muscles. Muscles that aren't exercised become weak and atrophied, whereas muscles that are routinely exercised become strong and resilient. Starting right now, stop thinking of yourself as undisciplined or weak, and start recognizing the need for some muscle building, self-discipline muscle building. As you'll see in the chapters ahead, building your self-discipline muscle isn't a result of wishful thinking, but of making choices. Just as having a strong, fit body is the end result of determined physical effort, having a strong, durable capacity for self-discipline is the end result of focused psychological effort. To focus your psychological efforts, you need awareness of why you failed in the past, your self-sabotaging habits and perceptions, a progressive psychological program to build your self-discipline muscle. And it stacks the deck in your favor if you acknowledge ahead of time that you need to overcome a certain amount of temporary discomfort. Tolerating discomfort. It's no secret that humans are genetically programmed to avoid pain and seek pleasure. When it comes to eating, you and everyone else, given the choice, would rather avoid the pain, whether psychological or physiological, associated with feeling deprived. This is why, for many, the myth of painless, effortless dieting, frictionless dieting that allows you to eat all those forbidden foods without struggling, can be very enticing. After all, if you could do something painlessly, why would you choose to do it painfully? Trust me, except for the initial pumped-up phase of a diet, where your motivation and enthusiasm are high, and old habits and cravings have not yet crept back into the picture, it's unreasonable to think you're going to eliminate the inevitable discomfort and struggle as you strive to reach and maintain your goal weight. The simple truth is that change, all change, is met with some resistance, discomfort, until we adapt to that change. Self-coaching teaches you to adapt. Conquering emotional friction. Whenever you experience a craving, urge, or desire that conflicts with your weight loss intentions, this creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. I also call it emotional friction. In a car, not having enough oil causes the pistons to rub against the cylinder walls and create friction, which seizes the engine. Emotional friction does the same to you, but instead of pistons being seized, it's your willpower. When destructive eating habits come up against your intentions to lose weight, they generate friction, twisting your thoughts and potentially seizing your resolve. Until you break these habits, you experience the discomfort of friction. But once you break them, there's only a new, frictionless, effortless normal. Sounds too good to be true, huh? Keep listening. In the previous example, lack of oil causes the pistons to create friction, which creates heat. Similarly, emotional friction generates a heated state we call stress. One thing you're going to find out is that destructive eating and the stress caused by emotional friction go hand in hand. Whether you're feeling anxious, depressed, frustrated, fatigued, weak, and out of control, or simply bored, emotional friction, stress, is the high-octane fuel of unhealthy eating. Don't misunderstand, I'm not implying that anyone who can't lose weight needs to see a psychologist. Many well-adjusted, happy, overweight people share the fundamental problem of simply lacking self-discipline. When, however, there is emotional friction and resulting stress, food often becomes a ready distraction from our hectic, frustrating lifestyles. Whether it's to reward yourself after a hard day's work, to escape the chaos of financial stress, or simply to fill an emptiness, food can become a potent, go-to strategy for coping with a complex life. And if you're struggling with any kind of emotional friction, you may be particularly susceptible to the therapeutic relief that comes from what we traditionally refer to as comfort food, typically foods with a high sugar or carbohydrate content that offer a sense of emotional consolation or well-being and are often associated with nostalgic or sentimental memories. Regardless of your unique circumstance, unless you achieve a state of psychological resilience, you eventually succumb to old, destructive habits. This shouldn't surprise you, especially if you've either been incapable of losing weight or just haven't been successful in handling the ongoing demands of keeping it off. The effort and pressure of dieting can feel like you're walking in a stream against a current. As the stream of impulses, cravings, doubts, and negative thoughts keeps pounding at you, inevitably, you grow fatigued, and eventually the stream wins. You capitulate. But what if you don't have to be in the stream at all? What if instead of fighting a constant stream of torment, you could simply step out of the stream and feel no pressure, no opposition, no strain? This is what it feels like when you've achieved psychological resilience. Self-coaching is a proven method of achieving psychological resilience and liberation, not only from destructive food habits, but also from emotional friction, lack of self-discipline, and life struggle. It's important for you to be mindful that simply losing weight doesn't mean your battle with food is over. Weight loss will no doubt boost your confidence, but it won't do much to change any long-standing destructive emotional habits that got you in trouble in the first place. These habits can be dismantled only by systematically chipping away at the faulty thinking associated with them, while simultaneously putting corrected, healthy, fact-based thinking in their place. Navigating setbacks. You've been there before. You've experienced that burst of energy, optimism, and enthusiasm associated with reaching your goal weight. I did it! I actually did it! What a wonderful feeling. Looking at yourself in the mirror, you just can't keep from smiling. You really do look great. Days, weeks, and perhaps even months go by as you continue to enjoy your triumph, until one day, almost imperceptibly at first, the new jeans you just bought a few weeks ago seem tight. What the? The bathroom scale confirms what you already sense. You're gaining weight again. As the days go by, you begin to feel your motivation unraveling, as old, familiar struggles kick in, and you begin to resort to previous destructive eating habits, and worse, old destructive, self-defeating thinking. Why? Because these self-sabotaging habits were only temporarily masked by your initial enthusiasm and transient success. Your weight may have changed, but you haven't. Not really. Like a beach ball held underwater, eventually the old, unresolved habits will resurface. At this point, you feel yourself losing ground as you desperately try to stem the regressive tide and regroup before you lose any more confidence. You try, but as optimism gives way to gnawing guilt and confusion, you're left bewildered, defeated. Didn't I learn anything? I was so good. I lost so much weight. Why couldn't I stay strong? It just doesn't seem fair. And when you look hard enough for reasons, you inevitably wind up with the same old verdict. I must lack self-discipline. If you haven't already, you're beginning to feel that weight mastery is merely a myth. Here's the sad truth. If you thought your diet would provide you with the tools you needed for long-term success, weight mastery may as well be a myth. However, you're about to find out that a self-coaching approach is a myth buster, making weight mastery a reality, if not a certainty. Weight maintenance, nuts and bolts. Most popular diets talk about weight maintenance, i.e., the promised land of dieting. It's the place you supposedly get to where you can eat normally. Well, at least more normally than when you were dieting. But don't let short-term weight loss success fool you into thinking it translates into lifelong success. This time I'm going to keep it off. And what exactly makes you think this time will be different? It won't be, because the only thing that changed while you were dieting was, presumably, your weight, not your mind. And it's your mind, for better or worse, that determines your dietary fate. Deny this fact, and you will be relegated to a life of endless yo-yo dieting. Assuming you're determined to forge ahead, let me at least offer you this incentive. Consider for a moment that you've acquired the ongoing post-diet ability to handle any urge, impulse, or craving with complete composure, calm, and confidence. And do this without any discomfort. Yes, this is possible and not a myth. Your self-coaching goal is to get beyond the initial discomfort associated with breaking destructive habits that have been holding you hostage all these years to an effortless place of weight mastery. The anatomy of commitment. By fortifying your mind and your resolve through self-coaching, you begin to untangle the web of victimization caused by emotional compulsivity and the corresponding feelings of weakness. You replace irrational obsessions with rational, reasonable, self-disciplined choices. You learn to repattern not only your thinking and perceptions about food, but your physiology as well, as you abstain from addictive foods. In a nutshell, you go from struggle to serenity, from compulsion to self-control, and from weakness to empowerment. Sure, you would still enjoy a hunk of cheesecake or chocolate mousse, who wouldn't? But without any internal debate or discomfort, you simply affirm, no thanks. No pain, no upset, no feeling deprived, simply a confirmation that you are no longer ruled by destructive habits, nor are you ruled by discomfort. Forming new habits. Try tying your shoelace by crossing your hands. You'll eventually manage to tie a bow, but you will experience the discomfort of frustration as you stumble along. Ask any nail-biter how maddening it is to keep her fingers away from her mouth, or any cigarette smoker about the irritation he experiences when trying to quit. Mark Twain once quipped, "Giving up smoking is the easiest thing in the world." I know, because I've done it thousands of times. Habits, by their very nature, are stubborn things. So be braced for what's ahead. Doesn't matter what dietary approach you start out with. Eventually, as you confront old, entrenched, self-sabotaging eating habits, you experience some discomfort. This is inevitable, but it's no reason to retreat in despair. Once you've managed to build up your self-discipline muscle, you'll find that handling transient discomfort is no longer an issue. The question is, how do you build enough muscle to resist inevitable friction and discomfort of cravings, impulses, and stress? To answer this, let's draw an analogy to what goes on in physical therapy when you need to rehabilitate a muscle. A weakened leg muscle that's been in a cast for months requires progressive stretching and exercise. An atrophied self-discipline muscle, just like a leg or a shoulder muscle, requires progressive exercise in the form of self-coaching physical therapy. It matters not whether the muscle is physical or psychological. The formula for success is the same. Regular, progressive exercising eventually leads to rehabilitation. It all begins with modest, doable challenges and drills that, over time, are designed to increase your confidence. Whether you call it self-discipline, willpower, or self-control, it all boils down to your ability to say no. This single word gives you the ability to determine and demand the life you want. Self-coaching tip. With a fortified self-discipline muscle, anyone can learn to handle the transient discomfort involved in habit reformation. The 3 big challenges to weight mastery. Your enemies. As you begin the process of liberating yourself from destructive eating, it may help to keep in mind a saying derived from Sun Tzu's The Art of War: know your enemy. In order not to be victimized by impulses, cravings, misperceptions, or mindless destructive patterns, it's imperative to know and appreciate your enemies. Lifelong weight mastery has 3 enemies: adverse circumstances, harmful emotions, and destructive habits. Typically, these enemies commingle. A setback at work, adverse circumstance, may cause intense panic, harmful emotion, leaving you reaching for the solace of an old friend, that pint of ice cream, destructive habit. And the 3 enemies can occur in any order. For instance, a binge, destructive habit, could lead to depression, harmful emotion, which could then create a situation in which you get in trouble at work, adverse circumstance. These are the 3 enemies of moderation and healthful eating, and they represent the challenges you must neutralize in order to have the life you want, the life you deserve. Enemy number 1, adverse circumstances. Adverse circumstances encompass an array of everyday life challenges. Often these events, big or small, are out of our control. Pressures at work, the demands of rearing children, the inherent stress of maintaining a relationship, illness, financial strain, and so on. As you'll learn, life circumstances themselves never bring us to our knees or to the pantry. Our interpretation of these circumstances does that. Take, for example, a bad hair day. One person might shrug it off. Who cares? No big deal. But another might become panicky. Oh my God, what if someone sees me like this? While a third person, becoming thoroughly depressed, might decide not to leave the house and scurries off to find some comfort food. It's not the bad hair day that causes these reactions. It's our perception of the hair that does. While you can't always prevent bad things from happening, you can control how you react to them. When tripped up by life circumstances, it's easy to lose confidence, resolve, and most importantly, perspective. The more you allow yourself to feel out of control, the more you generate stress, anxiety, or even panic, thereby contributing to and exacerbating your troubles. And at times, when you're feeling disoriented and panicky, you know you can count on the solace associated with comfort food. Self-coaching is going to teach you the necessary perspective along with specific techniques for fortifying your self-discipline muscle, ensuring ongoing resilience as you navigate around the potholes of craving and impulse. Success in life isn't about escaping or sidestepping challenges. It's about handling every challenge with strength, conviction, and optimism. Self-coaching teaches you that you are a survival machine. You have a lot more psychological muscle and tenacity than you realize. With patience, a resilient mindset, and the right perspective, you'll tap into this reservoir of inner strength that has been eluding you until now. Self-coaching reflection. Resilience is knowing that adversity is temporary. This too shall pass. Enemy number 2, harmful emotions. There's no doubt that emotions play a major role in destructive eating. Anxiety, panic, boredom, moodiness, depression, irritability, stress, and so on can create emotional chaos that compels us to seek the calming, distractive, anesthetizing qualities inherent in our go-to comfort foods. As we'll discuss more fully in Chapter 3, food can affect the brain chemicals responsible for pleasure and feeling good, and consequently have a dramatic and profound effect on our moods. When it comes to emotional first aid, there's no question that comfort food becomes a form of self-medication. Like alcohol, nicotine, or cannabis, food can have a powerful sedating effect on tense emotions. It can deflect, distract, and offer temporary solace from the stress of emotional challenges. And yes, boredom is an emotion that can generate stress or irritability, inducing us to use food to fill the vacuum of an empty life, a passionless relationship, or inadequate stimulation. When emotions go beyond temporary mood disturbances and become entrenched in deeper-seated depressions or anxieties, the resolve to lose or maintain weight is significantly weakened, if not shattered. For this reason, it's critical to first address the underlying psychological issues that may prevent you from reaching your goals. Fortunately, self-coaching is a proven method of handling not only transient emotional struggle, but also anxiety and depression. I've specifically devoted Chapter 11 to assisting you in breaking the habits of insecurity and control that are the root of all anxiety and depressive conditions. Enemy number 3, destructive habits. Human beings are creatures of habit. Our survival as a species was due in part to our ability to establish patterns, routines, and habits in our day-to-day lives. Although reflexive habits such as touch typing, driving a car, or even buttoning a blouse or shirt, which involves often overlooked intricate dexterity, are undeniably helpful. You'd be hard-pressed for time if every day you had to relearn to do these tasks. Other habits such as succumbing to lethargy, aka becoming a couch potato, worrying, and excessive rumination. Yes, these are habits. Or the habits associated with destructive eating can hold you and your life hostage. Being able to recognize the habitual nature of what you do, when you do it, and why you do it is pivotal in the reformation that can change destructive patterns into positive habits. It is absolutely essential that you accept the notion that habits, all habits, are learned. Furthermore, all habits, can be broken. Unfortunately, as mentioned earlier, habits are stubborn things. They resist change. The familiar concept of yo-yo dieting is a testimony to the fact that in time, old habits reassert themselves in spite of previous successful weight loss. As an overweight patient of mine, sounding a lot like Mark Twain once quipped, "I've never had a problem losing weight. I've done it thousands of times." Self-coaching tip. Unless you learn to change your habituated thoughts, perceptions, and behaviors, losing weight will always be a temporary success. Lifelong weight mastery is dependent on a resilient attitude, capable of sustaining your habit reformation efforts over time.